When it comes to national parks and wildlife, India and Nepal always receive raving reviews. And yet, few people know that this success was built on the bedrock of forceful displacement of indigenous peoples from their homeland. The following are their painful stories.
I have heard from others, but when I really visited them, it really shocked me.
Dawn breaks at Suklafata National Park in far western Nepal. The thriving Barasinghe or swamp deer population is a cornerstone of Nepal's wildlife conservation success story. But this place was the ancestral domain of indigenous Rana Tharus well before the establishment of Suklafata National Park. Tharus had their own customary governance system, traditional livelihoods, cultural values, and maintain a symbiotic relationship with natural resources. They worship figurines of tigers, elephants, and horses as their protective deities. But ironically, during the establishment of Suklafata, Tharus were forcibly relocated to make room for wild animals. Dr. Pasang Dolma Sherpa of Sipred, who has been carrying rights-based conservation research in India and Nepal, is assessing the impacts of forced relocation on Tharus in Nepal. The Tharus were forced without free prior informed consent to settle 37 kilometers away from their traditional forest homeland. Mansingh and his family of 40 members live on just 0.3 acres of land with no land for agriculture. Every time when Mansingh comes back from Ladakh, he visits the place of his childhood. Tharus have to seek permission from park authorities even to perform traditional rituals at their ancestral religious site, which is now inside the national park. They are even prohibited from collecting medicinal herbal plants like this one, which are used by Tharus to treat epilepsy. The conservation laws and policies towards indigenous people are blatant violations of rights ensured by international conventions, agreements, treaties signed and ratified by Nepali government.
ILO 169 or UN DRIP, it clearly mentioned that indigenous people can have their rights over their traditional livelihoods, or lands over their ancestral domain, full and effective participation, even at peak, free prior informed consent. But all this one is just remain on the paper.
Throughout national parks in Nepal, like in this world-renowned Bardia National Park, people and wildlife conflicts are increasing. Majority of victims are people from indigenous groups. The stakeholders agree that the problem with Nepal's conservation lies with the National Parks and Wildlife Conservation Act of 1973 for its emphasis on fortress conservation of protected areas. In India, like in this majestic Similipal National Park in the state of Odisha, the experiences of indigenous people are equally painful. Simlipal is home to Ho tribal people who have been living in harmony with nature and wild animals. Since 2006, Ho people are protected by Forest Rights Act of 2006, which gives indigenous people their rights over forest and its resources.
You cannot relocate or say evict the people without recognizing their right.
Khadiya tribal people were relocated to concrete blocks at Banabasa with false promises of agriculture, land, school, and drinking water facilities. Detached from forest homeland, many Khariyas couldn't continue their traditional livelihood and abandoned the place.
Relocation has always been a failed attempt, and in future also it will continue to remain so.
In future, to meet COP15's global diversity frameworks aim to increase 30% of planet's land as protected and conservation areas. More protected areas will be declared. Back in Nepal, CIPRED has brought together representatives of all indigenous peoples and local communities, including government agencies, in a 2-day national workshop on rights-based conservation in Nepal.
जसरी इन्डियामा चाहिँ त्यहाँको राज्यले ऐन नै परिवर्तन गरेर उनीहरूको अधिकारहरू सुनिश्चित गरिरहेको छ, हिजोको उनीहरूमाथि भएको अधिकार अन्यायलाई फेरि पनि के सम्झाएर सुधार्ने काम भइरहेको छ, उनीहरूको चाहिँ भूमिलाई फिर्ता दिने खालको कामहरू गरिरहेछ, त्यसरी नै नेपालको सरकारले पनि गर्नुपर्छ भन्ने तरिकाले हामी काम गरिरहेछौँ।
In a historic achievement, the stakeholders called for the scrapping of controversial National Parks and Wildlife Conservation Act of 1973 and creation of a new law promoting rights-based protected areas in Nepal. The memorandum was handed to the Ministry for Forests and Environment.